.NET for Devices presents EvenTiles Part 1, Creating the Initial Project. Hello, my name is Maarten Strauss. Let's create an application for Windows Phone. So I'm going to start Visual Studio, we're going to create a new project, and I'm going to select a Silverlight application for Windows Phone. I'm going to give it a different name. The name is going to be EvenTiles. Then I'm going to click OK. And we're just going to wait until Visual Studio creates the project. It's going to be a Windows Phone 7.1 project. So what you can see is our main form. Let's just make sure that we can see it entirely. And the first thing I'm going to do is change the application title. And we're going to give the application a name. And that name is going to be EvenTiles. And then we're also going to change the page name of our main page. And we're just going to give there a descriptive name. So the idea of the application is to have a secondary tile and to be able to pin that to the start screen to create an even number of tiles on the start screen. And with that our application is already ready to run. So I'm going to deploy to a Windows Phone emulator. We're going to run in debug mode. I'm going to start the emulator and we're going to deploy the application. And what we're also going to do is make sure that the entire emulator is visible on the screen. So I'm going to fit to screen. And here is the application running. What you can see is a number of counters, being performance counters, for instance indicating the frame rate, giving us an indication how fast our application is running. And what I can do with the application is just terminate it by clicking on the back key. After deploying the application once to the emulator, it is now stored in the emulator, so I can start the application. And this time you can see that we don't have those performance counters because I was not running from inside the debugger. I can also pin a tile to the start menu and I can unpin that tile again from the start menu. And since the emulator is a fully functional Windows Phone device, I can do all kinds of things like also uninstalling the application again from the emulator. Visual Studio, when it created our solution, also created a splash screen for us. The splash screen is sort of a default screen, and since our application will start fast, I'm just going to delete the splash screen. The next thing we want to do is create a little bit of a nicer tile for our start screen, and in order to do that I'm just going to make sure that I can open the background.png file with an application called paint.net. So first I'm going to look for that application. Now we're gonna entirely change that background image, and in order to do so I'm gonna add a new layer which is transparent, and on that transparent layer of the same size as the original tile, what we're gonna do is draw a number of squares, and I'm gonna give them a white color, and the rest of the tile we're gonna leave that transparent, and that will take the background color that is selected on the device later on, as you will see in a second or so. So we're gonna do the same thing for another square that we draw next to the other one, and this is the idea to mimic kind of the start screen of a Windows Phone device. And what we're gonna do after we filled this square as well with white, we're just gonna save this file back into the original background.png file. And after replacing it, now this will become the tile that we can pin to the start screen for our application. So I'm gonna save it. I'm gonna navigate to the folder where my images are stored in my solution, and I'm going to save it as a PNG file. And Paint.net is asking me a couple of options how to save that file. I'm just going to leave the default options there. I'm going to flatten out the file and we're done. Now we're going to do the same with the application icon, and that is the small icon that is visible in the list of installed programs. We're just going to use exactly the same icon as we had the application tile, and the only thing we're going to do is just make that application tile smaller, make it 62 by 62 pixels, and then we're going to store that file again, but this time we're going to store it under the application icon file name in that folder of our project. And so we're storing it, we're overwriting the existing one, which was a default one again. And with our new tile and application icon in place, we can run the application again inside the emulator. So here's the application running. I'm going to terminate it, and hey, look at that application tile. It now has a red theme color. I can pin it to the start screen again, and then we get our tile on the start screen, and that should have that same red color of the theme color and the white squares that we created, and also an application name. And what we now can do is change the theme color on our device, and that's something you can do in the emulator as well. So I'm just going to go for mango, for instance, and let's take a look at how our application tile and our icon are looking now, and I just take over the theme color of the device. Now the next thing we want to do is get some dynamics to that application tile, and in order to do that, what we want to do is write on the back side of that tile. And the first thing I'm gonna do is make use of Paint.net again to create just an empty background, and it's gonna be an entirely empty background, just being transparent. So I'm just gonna create an empty picture with the right dimensions, 173 by 173. I'm going to disable the background, and with that I just have a transparent background, and we're going to save that again as a PNG file, and I'm going to call that background, and we're going to store that in that same folder where all the other artwork for our Windows Phone application exists. I'm going to leave all those default settings again. And then the next thing we're gonna do is add that just created PNG file to our solution. So we're gonna add an existing item. It's gonna be our background.png file. And then I'm gonna show our properties window just to make sure if we need to set some additional properties, like the build action should be content instead of resource. So we're gonna change that too. We're also making sure to copy that just created PNG file to the output directory. Now we're going to specify its name in our Windows Phone manifest file, which is just an XML file. So I'm going to specify that the URI for that application back tile is going to be a relative URI, and we're going to specify its name as well, being the background image. The next thing we're gonna do is also on the back side of our application tile write the application title. So we're just gonna write EvenTiles there, and we're gonna specify some additional text that we're gonna show on the back side of that tile, and we can do that because we don't show any additional images there, just a transparent background that is taking the theme color of our current settings on the Windows Phone. So let's just set click me to start EvenTiles there, and now that tile will rotate. So let's just save our manifest file and let's deploy. So we just deployed the application again to the emulator. We're gonna terminate it immediately because everything is now copied again to the emulator, and we're just gonna wait for our application tile to rotate, which should happen automatically, and as you can see, that is just happening. We are nicely following our theme color on the device, and you could see that additional text that we just specified in the manifest file. Now we're also gonna test this particular application in another theme, and we're gonna use a light theme because that's something that's important important as well. Users might have a light theme on their phone, and we usually as developers forget testing that. So I'm just going to test that scenario as well. We're going to take another look. While the icon looks good, I'm going to take a look at the application tile as well, and we're going to see if it's rotating. And that is about it for this first part of creating EvenTiles from scratch. I hope you enjoyed this video.